Hello, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Would I buy a G87 M2 having owned an F87 M2? Two of them actually. So the G87 M2 has been out for a little while now. It hasn't been out for that long, but it's been out for long enough that you're slowly starting to kind of see them out in the wild. And people are now wondering, well, do I trade in the F Series and get a G Series M2? And I'm going to kind of give my thoughts on this, having owned the F Series, and kind of what I think of the new M2, and really ultimately, like I said, would I buy one? Now, before I can go into the M2, you kind of have to start by talking about the M3 and M4, the new G80 and G82 M3 and M4. You kind of have to talk about those first before you talk about the new M2, and I'll kind of go into a little bit why, and then we'll kind of circle back around to the M2 and my thoughts on that car. The M3 and M4 have now been out for a couple of years now. When the new M3 and M4 were unveiled, the world pretty much thought they were absolutely hideous. Now from the back, they look pretty good. There's not really much wrong from the back. It's a little bit of a deviation from traditional BMW, but we can all live with it. It's not too bad. The side profile, really nice, really sleek. No problem there. But the fronts, we all know the elephants in the room with the M3 and M4 are those buck-tooth grills, the little beaver teeth that those BMWs have. And when they came out, everyone thought they were absolutely hideous. And a lot of people, me included, said, I'm never buying one. It is absolutely ugly. I don't care what the performance is. I will throw a disclaimer out there. I have not driven any of the G Series cars. The only G Series car I've been in is an M340i. I have not been in a M3, M4, or an M2. So bear that in mind. This is my thoughts having not driven them. So now that those cars have been out for a little while, I think a lot of people's opinions on those cars have kind of changed. And I think we just all become pretty used to the new look of the M3, M4. So all performance aside, my opinion on the M3, M4 has kind of changed. So initially, I really wouldn't have considered buying one of them just because of how ugly they look with the front grills. Now they've kind of really grown on me, and it's a car that I would definitely consider. Now, really because of that reason of having my mind changed over time with the M3, M4, I wanted to kind of wait initially to make this video on the M2 to kind of give the M2 a little bit more time to kind of marinate and sit and see if my thoughts change on the M2. But honestly, I still think the design on the M2 is just not it. Like when you look at the car from the back, the rear lights are just awkward. All the lights now have this weird squiggle, like the BMW squiggle lights, which fine, I could live with, but those lights just look so awkward on that car. And then the exhaust. The diffuser has this awkward square cutout. I just don't understand why they made it square. It just does not look that good. The side profile, it's fine. I wish they did have a little vent piece. Now, obviously on the M2, the vent piece that you have by the wheel arch is fake. It's not a functional piece. It's more so aesthetic. I do still wish they had that on the M2, on the G Series, but fine. Maybe they'll have it for the competition. The front is another absolute disaster on the M2. So when you look at the air intakes, again, you have this weird square pattern that it just doesn't fit the car. And then the headlights. So I miss the days when BMW had just the normal halo lights. You know, you had the normal halos, two on each side, and boom, there's your BMW. And then how much time do we want to spend talking about the colors on that car? When they first unveiled the new M2 in the Zandvoort blue, those leak pictures, we've all seen the leak pictures. I'll put one on the screen. That car looked horrible. And some of us were thinking, well, maybe it's like an early design. Maybe this is, you know, one of the first concepts of the car. But no, it turned out to be the car. The colors are just not that good. Like, if you get a new one, in my personal opinion, don't let me sway you into what color to get, but in my opinion, the best color on it is red or black. The other colors, I just don't think look good on the car. I think if you had to pick a color, I think red kind of just makes it stand out, and black just kind of hides a lot of issues with the car. So now I can kind of circle back to why I brought up the M3 and M4. So because my opinion has changed from going to I would not buy this car to yeah, I would consider buying it, I thought, okay, let me give the M2 the benefit of the doubt, and let's say we are now a year ahead. Maybe they do a little life cycle refresh on the car, they give it a little facelift, maybe the new M2 Competition comes out, and all of a sudden the car looks more attractive, and I'm like, wow, that's a good looking car, I like the aesthetics, let's rule the aesthetics out of the picture. And my answer is still going to be no. I would not buy the new G Series M2, and I'll tell you pretty much why I would not buy the car. Performance-wise, so the performance of the cars are absolutely insane. I think the new M2 is like over 450 horsepower, which is nuts. But what I think the M2 lacks is a bit of character. It's a lot more difficult to find character in cars nowadays than it is on older cars. You know, older cars all have their little quirks and weird things that kind of make them them, whereas modern cars don't really have that so much. Everything's kind of been ironed out. Cars are a lot more reliable. You don't have these weird quirks anymore. There's not really too much uniqueness. Every car now has a giant screen, has this, has that. Everything's pretty much the same. So the new M2 kind of lacks character, and I think it'd be better to buy an F87 M2, like an OG one or the Competition, because it has a little bit more character. Now, I know there are some people that say the M2 doesn't really have any character. It's just kind of a lifeless machine. It lacks a little charm, and I would disagree. And I'll tell you what character I think the M2 has. I think its little character and quirk is that it's like a child at the mall. You're walking through the mall, and all of a sudden he looks and sees something, he just tries to run off. He tries to get away from you. So you're like, all right, come back here, come back here. You go after the kid. It's like the rear end of this car, always trying to get loose. It wants to get away from you, and you have to kind of hold it there a little bit. And it's like a kid at the mall. He wants to run and see this. You pull him back. Okay, now everything's calm, and then you go through another turn really hard, and then it wants to get away from you again to see something else, and it starts to run away from you. And I think that's also kind of matched by the whole idea of the M3 and M4 being this car's kind of big brother. Whereas this is kind of the little brother getting into trouble, kind of running off, kind of just being a little wild thing, a little wild child. The M3 and 4 are kind of the bigger brothers in the picture. So I think that's kind of the character of this car. Now, the last kind of point I want to touch on with the new M2 and why I wouldn't buy the car is the price tag. When this M2 came out, I think it debuted at MSRP of $55,000. So the new M2s are going for pretty stably about $70,000. And now you're paying $15,000 more for the new car. Now, sure, you could justify it with the performance of that car with the 450 horsepower. Sure, you could justify the $70,000 from that angle, but at some point in a car's purchase price, you're paying for the name, you're paying for the brand and the car. It's like when you pay $250,000 for a Ferrari, you know you're buying a Ferrari. You know a huge chunk of that money goes to the name and the brand. When you're buying something like an M car, you know half the money's going towards the fact it's a BMW, and then another big chunk is going to the M brand, paying to own an M4, M5, an M2. And I don't think that the name of M2 justifies $70,000. You know, at the end of the day, yes, it's an M car, it has M performance, but it's still a glorified 2 Series. It's a 2. And I don't think $70,000 in any way, shape, or form justifies the fact that it's a 2 Series. Personally, once I get to that kind of money where I can spend that kind of money on a car, I would rather take a different route. Now, this is my thoughts, personally, my thoughts. I, for $70,000, would rather look at something like an entry-level exotic. Like, I would start to look at, okay, for $70,000, I could get into a nice older Audi R8, or I could get into an Aston Martin, like really nice V8 Vantage. Now, not everyone obviously wants to go down the route of exotic cars and buy an Aston Martin or an Audi R8. I think it'd be more fun and a lot cooler and a lot more exciting to buy something like that and have money left over than it is to buy a brand new M2. I don't know, that's kind of my thought about the whole new M2. I do still want to test drive one, see what it's all about. I'd love to test drive the new one in the manual, kind of drive the last of the manual that the M2 comes in and has to offer. I'm gonna wrap this video up. Those are my thoughts. So let me know you guys' thoughts. What do you guys think of the new G87 M2? Is it a car that you want to buy? Did you buy one? What are your thoughts on it? Talk to me about it. I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it has a lot to offer, but personally, not for me. I wouldn't buy one. Let me know what you guys think. So thank you much for watching. If you liked the video, please leave a like. Subscribe if you want to see more videos. And no matter what, thank you so much for watching. Until next time.